Hello, and welcome to the English mini lesson. Some of you may be watching on YouTube, some of you may be listening on a podcast, and some of you may have subscribed to my Substack. Whichever way got you here, I'm glad you're here. Three quick housekeeping items that we will go over each time. Number one, be prepared. If you're listening on the podcast, grab a notebook so you can take notes. If you're watching the stream, you can take notes or even screenshots. Number two, pay attention. These mini lessons are meant to be just that, mini. They're not long and drawn out, so put the other devices away and pay attention to the lesson we are about to go over. If you are a paid subscriber to the Substack, you can ask any questions about today's lesson in the chat and submit your review answers in there as well. Number three, this is quite possibly the most important message. You are the captain of your own learning. You only get out what you put into your education, but no one can take your learning away from you. Showcase your knowledge on this subject by completing the practice questions at the end. And as always, enjoy today's mini lesson. Today, we're going to be discussing allegories. Our English mini lesson objectives. We are going to define what type of story an allegory is. An allegory is a story in which characters and events symbolize deeper ideas or truths about life, often imparting a strong moral lesson. These stories go beyond simply entertaining us. They use metaphors and symbolism to convey messages about human nature, society, or ethics. Think back. What might be the first examples of an allegory that most people were read to as a child? If you said Aesop's fables, you're correct. One of the earliest and most well known examples of allegory comes from Aesop's fables, a collection of short stories attributed to Aesop, a Greek storyteller who lived nearly 2,600 years ago. While many fables are credited to him, a few have remained especially memorable due to their powerful allegorical meanings, teaching lessons about wisdom, perseverance, and morality that still resonate today. Yes, the tortoise and the hare. Aesop's classic fable tells the tale of a boastful hare who mocks the slow moving tortoise. In response, the tortoise challenges him to a race. Overconfident and certain of his speed, the hare underestimates his opponent, wasting time and growing careless. Meanwhile, the determined tortoise steadily moves forward and ultimately wins. While this story is entertaining on the surface, it also serves as an allegory, like many of Aesop's fables, teaching a valuable life lesson. The deeper meaning behind the tale is that natural talent alone is not enough. Without discipline and effort, it can be wasted. The hare represents those who rely too much on their abilities, but fail to put in consistent work, while the tortoise embodies perseverance, patience, and steady determination. Adults often recognize both characters and people they know, making the story universally relatable. When viewed allegorically, the race isn't just about speed, it symbolizes life itself, where dedication and perseverance often lead to success. Next, we have the ant and the grasshopper. This fable tells the story of a carefree grasshopper who spends his days playing and enjoying the warm weather. Meanwhile, a diligent ant works tirelessly gathering food and preparing for the colder months. The grasshopper laughs at the ant, mocking him for working so hard instead of relaxing and having fun. However, when winter arrives, the grasshopper finds himself hungry and without shelter, while the ant stays warm and well fed. This tale can be seen as a tragic story of the grasshopper's downfall, but it also serves as an allegory, illustrating the importance of hard work, responsibility, and preparation. It teaches that those who plan ahead and remain diligent will be better equipped to face challenges and hardships in life. Next, we have Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss was an expert allegorist. Nearly all of his full length books for children are, in fact, allegories of important political or moral issues targeted at adults. There are a great many examples of how Dr. Seuss used allegory. I want to tell you about three of them. He had symbolism in simple stories. Seuss used engaging, fantastical settings to reflect real world issues. His stories were not just fun tales, but also symbolic narratives with a lot of deeper meanings. They were moral and social lessons. A lot like Aesop's fables, Seuss's books conveyed strong moral messages, often warning against greed, discrimination, environmental destruction, and authoritarianism. They had political and social commentary. Many of his books were direct responses to historical and societal events, using allegory to critique or explain them in a very accessible way. We're going to discuss four examples of Seuss's allegories next. The first is Yertle the Turtle. During World War II, Dr. Seuss worked as a political cartoonist. A lot of people don't know that about him, often creating illustrations that mocked Hitler and the Nazis. His talent for weaving political messages into work carried over into his children's books, including Yertle the Turtle. On the surface, this story follows a turtle king who becomes increasingly power hungry, stacking his subjects beneath him to climb higher. However, his relentless greed leads to his downfall. Sound familiar? Many interpret Yertle the Turtle as an allegory for the rise and fall of Adolf Hitler. Whether or not that was Seuss's direct intent, the story clearly serves as a critique of totalitarianism and autocratic governments. It highlights how oppressive leaders exploit their people in pursuit of power, ultimately undermining individual freedom until the weight of their own tyranny topples them. Next, we have The Sneetches. The Sneetches is a beloved Dr. Seuss story that captivates young readers with its quirky characters and playful rhymes. It follows a group of creatures who are obsessed with their differences. Those with stars on their bellies feel superior, while those without feel inferior. An opportunistic businessman arrives and convinces them to spend all their money trying to change their appearances, constantly switching between having and not having stars. In the end, the Sneetches finally realized that their differences were meaningless all along, and that they were always more alike than they thought. While children may enjoy the story at face value, older readers quickly recognize its deeper meaning. The Sneetches is a powerful allegory about the absurdity of prejudice and discrimination, particularly racism. Through this clever and engaging tale, Dr. Seuss exposes how arbitrary division can lead to unnecessary conflict and exploitation, ultimately delivering a timeless lesson on equality and acceptance. The Lorax. The Lorax is both a book and some of you may have seen the movie. It is a cautionary tale about environmental destruction and corporate greed. The story follows the Onceler, an ambitious entrepreneur who discovers a beautiful land filled with truffula trees and unique creatures. Ignoring the consequences, he begins cutting down the trees to mass produce needs, a product he believes everyone needs. Despite repeated warnings from the Lorax, a small mustache creature who speaks for the trees, the Onceler continues his deforestation, leading to the destruction of the environment, the displacement of wildlife, and the eventual collapse of his own business. By the end of the story, the land is barren, the Lorax has disappeared, and the Onceler is left in regretful solitude. However, he passes on the last truffula seed to a young boy, urging him to care for it and restore the forest. The book serves as an allegory for real world environmental issues, illustrating how unchecked greed and exploitation can lead to irreversible harm. Dr. Seuss delivers a powerful message about the importance of conservation, responsibility, and the idea that even one person can make a difference in protecting the planet. Another favorite of mine, Horton Hears a Who. This is a heartwarming story about Horton, a kind and gentle elephant who discovers a world, Whoville, living on a speck of dust. Despite being unable to see them, Horton hears the voices of the Whos and vows to protect them, believing that a person's a person, no matter how small. However, the other animals in the jungle mock and threaten him, refusing to believe in the existence of the Whos. Determined to save them, Horton encourages the Whos to make as much noise as possible so they can be heard. In a dramatic moment, a tiny Who named Jojo adds his voice, finally making the entire jungle hear them. This story serves as an allegory about the importance of standing up for those who are ignored or marginalized. It reflects themes of equality, justice, and the idea that every voice matters, no matter how small. Many interpret the book as a statement against oppression and a call to defend the rights of the powerless. Some have even connected it to post World War II themes, particularly the need to acknowledge and protect those who are vulnerable. Through Horton's unwavering determination, Dr. Seuss teaches a timeless lesson about empathy, responsibility, and the power of advocacy. Okay, here's a reminder. Paid subscribers to the Substack can submit their answers and any questions into the chat. We have 2 questions for today. Number 1, I would like you to find an example of allegory in literature, but not one of the examples we went over today. Then, after you find that, I want you to answer this. What makes this story an example of an allegory? Your answer should be 5 to 7 sentences in length. I hope you enjoyed today's English mini lesson, and I hope to see you next week. Have a great one.